Your life is already built around your next paycheck. That's not a belief, it's a structure. Most people don't notice it because it doesn't feel dramatic. It feels normal. Rent commits first, then the bills, then everything else quietly rearranges itself around whatever is left. Missing one paycheck doesn't feel inconvenient. It doesn't feel like a delay. It feels destabilizing, like something important just shifted. And that reaction isn't random. It's learned. It means dependence has already formed. Not because you're careless, not because you're bad with money, but because your life already assumes the check will arrive. Most people think salary traps them because it isn't enough. That's the easy explanation. It's also the wrong one. Salary traps people by feeling safe for long enough that leaving starts to feel dangerous. At first, the paycheck feels like progress. It feels like proof that things are finally working, then it fades into routine. You stop noticing it. Then quietly it becomes necessary. And by the time most people notice that shift, it's already complete. The paycheck isn't income anymore. It's permission. Permission to pay rent. Permission to keep plans. Permission to stay calm when the month turns over. Once income becomes permission, losing it doesn't feel like losing money. It feels like losing the ability to live normally. And that's the moment most people are already inside the trap. Not poor, not reckless, just structured around something they no longer control. A software engineer named Evan gets paid every other Friday in Seattle. The deposit usually hits his account just after midnight. He sees the notification in the morning while brushing his teeth. After taxes, health insurance, and retirement contributions, it's a little over $7,000. He doesn't react. Not because it's small, because it's familiar. He's been seeing a number close to that for a while now. Evan has been at the same company for 4 years. When he started, his salary was $85,000. Now it's $112,000. On paper, that looks like progress. It looks like movement. He remembers the first raise clearly. He remembers where he was sitting when the email came through. The relief was physical. His shoulders dropped. It felt like something had finally loosened. The second raise felt smaller. The third one barely registered at all. By then, the number was expected. Rent is $2,300 a month. The car payment is $450. Student loans take another $600. Groceries come next. Gas, internet, phone. A gym membership he keeps meaning to cancel but never does. Every expense made sense when it was added. Nothing reckless, nothing extravagant. Each one felt reasonable. By the time the next paycheck arrives, most of the money is already assigned. Not spent. Assigned. The savings transfer runs automatically. Some months it's $800. Some months it's $200. Some months an unexpected expense absorbs all of it. Evan isn't struggling. That's the important part. He pays everything on time. He doesn't carry credit card balances. He doesn't feel stressed when the month turns over. He's doing what he was told to do. He's comfortable. And comfort is what makes this hard to notice. Weeks pass without friction. Months pass without disruption. The routine holds. The calendar fills. Workdays blur together. If nothing changes, his future is already shaped. Not because he failed. Not because he chose wrong, but because the structure is already in place. If this feels like it's about income level, pause. That assumption is part of how this stays invisible. Evan's manager earns $170,000 a year. He lives a few neighborhoods closer to the city, drives a newer car, takes slightly better vacations. From the outside, it looks like an upgrade. Inside, the rhythm is identical. The paycheck arrives, the money distributes, the savings grow slowly. Then the cycle resets. Trade time for money. Save what's left. Repeat. Across the country, Monica works as a nurse in Atlanta. She earns $68,000 a year. Different city, different profession, same structure. Rent, car, insurance, utilities. She's been doing this for 9 years. She has never missed a payment. She has never bounced a check. Her savings account holds $22,000. She checks it sometimes, usually late at night, just to make sure it's still there. She's proud of that number, and she should be. It took discipline. It took saying no to things her friends said yes to. It took consistency. But discipline didn't change the direction. It kept things stable. Her life today looks almost identical to 5 years ago. Same apartment size, same commute length, same pressure. Nothing collapsed. Nothing improved either. A teacher named Rachel started her career in Phoenix at $42,000. After 5 years, she made 51. After 10, 63. Each raise felt earned. Each one felt like momentum. But rent increased. Insurance went up. Groceries cost more. The raise didn't move her forward. It kept her from falling back. A promotion came. A newer car followed. A slightly better apartment. A vacation that felt nicer but ended faster than she expected. Not indulgence. Alignment. Within months, expenses recalibrated. The pressure returned. Nothing broke. And that's the warning. Because when nothing breaks, nothing forces a rethink. If this were about bad decisions, you'd see exceptions everywhere. You'd see people escaping easily, but you don't. You see the same pattern across cities, across careers, across decades. Different incomes, different titles, same outcome. Most people watching this are doing everything right. That's the part no one says out loud. The system doesn't punish mistakes. It quietly caps correctness. You can be responsible, consistent, disciplined, and still feel like nothing is actually changing. At first, the routine works. That's why people trust it. The paycheck arrives, the bills clear, the savings balance inches up. Life feels managed. For a while, that's enough. Months pass, then a year. Nothing feels wrong. And that's what makes this stage dangerous. Because the system hasn't failed yet. It's still delivering exactly what it promised. Time moves forward, but everything else stays aligned. The calendar fills. Meetings replace meetings. Projects turn into deadlines. Deadlines turn into reviews. Reviews turn into small adjustments. A little more responsibility. A little more pressure. A slightly larger number on a screen. The rhythm tightens. At first, it feels like progress. Then it starts to feel busy. Then it starts to feel permanent. People begin measuring life in cycles instead of goals. This quarter. Next review. End of the year. Everything important gets pushed just beyond the current cycle. Not abandoned, delayed, a vacation. Waits until approval clears. A move waits until the next bonus. An idea waits until things feel less tight. That moment never arrives. Because each cycle adds something new. A higher rent, a longer commute. Another commitment that assumes the paycheck continues. Nothing dramatic happens. There's no failure point, just accumulation. People wake up tired without knowing why. Not exhausted, just full. The days feel packed, but strangely empty. Time is being used, but nothing feels built. This is when people start saying things like, I'm doing okay. I'm stable. I can't complain. Those phrases sound positive. They're actually signals. They mean life has shifted from expansion to maintenance. Maintenance takes time. It takes attention. It takes consistency. And it punishes interruption. Once maintenance becomes the priority, risk starts to feel irresponsible. Not dangerous. Irresponsible. People still want change. They just want it without disruption. They want growth that doesn't disturb the schedule. Progress that doesn't threaten stability. That combination doesn't exist, but the system encourages the illusion. It keeps people busy enough not to notice the contradiction. Years pass. Responsibilities stack. The margin for error shrinks. Missing one paycheck doesn't just feel stressful anymore, it feels unthinkable. Because now other people depend on the rhythm. Landlords, lenders, employers, family, schedules. Everything assumes continuity, and continuity becomes the goal, not growth, not freedom. Continuity. This is when ambition quietly changes shape. It doesn't disappear, it gets resized. Big ideas turn into someday. Long-term plans turn into after things settle. Risky paths turn into stories people tell about who they used to be. Not because ambition died, because it no longer fits inside the life that's been built around predictability. People still move. They just move in place. Faster emails, longer hours, more efficient routines. The treadmill speeds up. The scenery doesn't change. This is why people look back and feel older than they expected. Not because time moved fast, because nothing meaningful shifted. The system didn't trap them suddenly. It trained them slowly. Each decision made sense on its own. Each adjustment felt responsible. Each delay felt temporary, until temporary became permanent, and permanence became invisible. From the outside, everything looks fine. Bills paid, career intact, no obvious crisis. From the inside, something feels off. A quiet pressure, a sense that options are narrowing, that doors aren't closing loudly, they're just not opening anymore. People don't panic here. They rationalize. They tell themselves this is adulthood, that everyone feels this way, that this is just how life works. And because nothing breaks, they keep going. That's the tension. The system doesn't need to collapse to win. It just needs to keep functioning. Because as long as it works, no one feels justified stepping away. Here's what makes this structural. Salary is payment for time, and time is the only resource that never stretches. There are only so many hours in a week, only so many weeks in a year, only so many years before the math stops working. People can become better at their jobs. They can become faster, more experienced, more trusted, harder to replace. But the exchange never changes. Time goes out. Money comes in. That loop stays intact no matter how high the number gets. Raises are incremental. Promotions are conditional. Bonuses are occasional. Even at the top, the engine stays linear. In San Jose, a senior engineer clears $200,000 a year. In Chicago, a regional director earns $350,000. In New York, a VP touches $600,000. Different cities, different titles, different lifestyles. Same shape. Every dollar still depends on presence. Every increase still waits for approval. Every level still requires showing up again tomorrow. The ceiling moves higher, but moves. It never disappears. This is where most people misread what they're seeing. They see income rise and assume freedom followed. It didn't. Because income tied to time behaves differently than income tied to structure. One stops when you stop, the other doesn't. Salary stops when presence stops. That's the constraint. It doesn't matter how skilled the person is. It doesn't matter how senior the title sounds. It doesn't matter how impressive the resume looks. The system still trades hours for dollars. And hours are finite. This is why high earners don't automatically become wealthy. They become expensive. The higher the income, the more life grows around it. Bigger homes appear. Better neighborhoods follow. Schools cost more. Social circles shift. Expectations rise quietly. The structure scales. The constraint doesn't. So the pressure returns. Not suddenly, not dramatically. Predictably. The paycheck grows. The obligations grow with it. And after a while, the higher number doesn't feel like progress. It feels like maintenance. Wealth behaves differently. It isn't built on presence. It's built on continuation. Things that exist keep producing. A rental property collects rent whether the owner is awake or not. A small business runs while the founder is somewhere else. Markets move on weekends. Assets don't ask if you showed up today. Time stays fixed. Output doesn't. That difference is invisible early. Two people can start in the same year. Same age, same income, same stress, same responsibilities. For a long time, their lives look identical. Same routines, same complaints, same plans postponed to later. Then quietly, they separate. Not because one worked harder, not because one was smarter, not because one took bigger risks, because one structure required time to function and the other didn't. That divergence doesn't show up in year one. It doesn't show up in year three. It shows up much later. It shows up when disruption arrives. When a job ends, when health changes, when priorities shift, when life stops cooperating. That's when one person can absorb the shock, and the other avoids it at all costs. Not because of weakness, because of design. One life can pause without collapsing, the other can't. Salary doesn't cause bad outcomes, it makes alternative outcomes expensive. Expensive enough that most people never test them. Moves get delayed, ideas stay theoretical. Plans remain conditional. Not because people are afraid, because the cost keeps rising. Every year adds another reason not to disrupt the structure. Another commitment, another obligation, another dependency tied to continuity. At this point, most people expect a solution. Something actionable, something reassuring, something that explains how to escape. There isn't one inside the structure that isn't pessimism. It's the constraint. Salary was designed for continuity. It was never designed for leverage. Here's the part most people miss. Salary doesn't just limit income, it limits imagination. Once a life depends on predictability, uncertainty stops feeling like opportunity and starts feeling like danger. Moves get delayed. Ideas stay ideas. Plans turn into someday. Not because people are lazy, because disruption gets more expensive every year. Each commitment raises the cost of leaving. Each obligation tightens the structure. Until the question quietly changes, not, is this building anything? But, can I afford to disrupt this? That shift doesn't feel dramatic. It feels mature, responsible, adult. And that's why it's so effective. This is where people assume earning more will fix it. It doesn't. In many cases, it makes it worse. Higher income brings higher stakes, more fixed costs, more expectations, more people depending on the check. The exit doesn't disappear overnight, it just becomes harder to justify. By the time unease shows up, the structure is already holding everything together. People don't feel trapped, they feel needed. Needed by bills, needed by schedules, needed by routines that only work if nothing changes. That's what makes the realization so quiet. There's no crisis moment, no single wrong decision, no obvious failure, just a slow awareness that the future has fewer exits than it used to. And because nothing is visibly wrong, the mind interprets that feeling as anxiety, not information. So it gets ignored until something small exposes it. A question from someone younger, a plan that keeps getting postponed, a calendar that feels full but strangely empty. That's when people understand. Not intellectually, emotionally. That safety and progress are not the same thing. And that realization doesn't push people to act. It just stays. Quietly. Because by then, staying feels easier than disrupting what's already built. And the system doesn't need enthusiasm to keep working. It only needs compliance. Salary feels safe. And that's exactly why it almost never builds leverage.